My daughter-in-law posted photos from Cancun and said, "You're not part of the family." 2 days later, she called me in despair. "Mother-in-law, our card was blocked." I laughed. "I forgot to mention that I canceled everything that was under my name." Listen to my story until the end and comment from which city you are watching me. That way, I can see how far my story has reached. My name is Margaret Thompson, and I am 73 years old. Everything started when I was sitting in my favorite armchair, scrolling through social media on the tablet my grandson had given me for my birthday last year. I had finally gotten the hang of this whole Facebook thing, though I still accidentally liked posts from 5 years ago sometimes. That particular Tuesday morning, I was enjoying my usual cup of Earl Grey when I saw them. Photo after photo of my son David, his wife Jessica, and their 2 children, my precious grandchildren Emma and little Tommy, all smiling brilliantly under the Mexican sun. Palm trees swayed behind them, crystal clear turquoise waters sparkled in the background, and they were all wearing matching tropical shirts that screamed expensive resort vacation. The caption read, "Thompson Family Vacation in Cancun, making memories that will last a lifetime." Jessica had tagged everyone except me, naturally. There were pictures of them at fancy restaurants, snorkeling in cenotes, lounging by infinity pools, and posing in front of ancient Mayan ruins. My heart sank as I realized this wasn't just a weekend getaway. This was a full-blown family vacation, and I hadn't even known it was happening. I set my teacup down with shaking hands and reached for my phone. David answered on the 3rd ring, his voice distant and slightly annoyed. "Hi, Mom. What's up? We're kind of busy right now." "David, honey, I just saw Jessica's photos from your trip. When did you decide to go to Cancun?" There was a pause, and I could hear the sound of waves and children laughing in the background. "Oh, those. Yeah, it was kind of a last-minute thing. Jessica found this great deal online." "A last-minute thing that lasted a week?" I asked, trying to keep the hurt out of my voice. "David, why wasn't I invited?" Another pause, longer this time. "Mom, you know how it is. These resort packages are designed for younger families. All the activities and stuff, I didn't think you'd be interested." Before I could respond, I heard Jessica's voice in the background, sharp and impatient. "David, who is that? We need to get to the dolphin swimming session." "It's just my mom," he said, and I heard him moving the phone away from his mouth slightly. "I'll be quick." "David," I said, raising my voice to make sure I was heard, "I would have loved to spend time with you and the children. I could have helped with Tommy while you and Jessica enjoyed some activities together." "Mom, look, we'll talk about this when we get back, okay? I really need to go now." The line went dead, and I sat there staring at my phone, feeling more alone than I had in years. Since my husband Harold passed away 3 years ago, these moments of isolation hit me particularly hard. I had thought my relationship with my son and daughter-in-law was good. I babysat the children regularly, helped with school pickups, and even contributed financially when they were going through that rough patch with David's business 2 years ago. I decided to call my sister Eleanor, who lived about an hour away. Eleanor had always been my closest confidant, and at 75, she had a way of putting things in perspective that I desperately needed. "Maggie," she said, using the nickname only she was allowed to use, "that girl has never liked you, and you know it. She's been trying to cut you out of David's life since the day they got married." "That's not true, Ellie. Jessica and I have had our differences, but we've always been civil." "Civil? Maggie, wake up. Remember when she accidentally scheduled Emma's birthday party on the same day as your book club meeting that you'd been looking forward to for months? Or when she told Tommy that grandmothers who give too many sweets are trying to make children sick? I remembered both incidents, but I had convinced myself they were misunderstandings. Eleanor continued, "And don't get me started on how she conveniently forgets to invite you to family barbecues until the last minute, when she knows you already have plans." After hanging up with Eleanor, I spent the rest of the day thinking, maybe she was right. Maybe I had been making excuses for Jessica's behavior for too long, but I needed to know for sure. I needed to hear it directly from Jessica herself. The next morning, I waited until I knew David would be at work. He had mentioned they were flying back late the previous night. I called their house, and Jessica answered, sounding tired and slightly irritated. "Oh, hi, Margaret. What can I do for you?" "Jessica, I wanted to talk to you about the trip. I was hurt that I wasn't included." "Well, Margaret, you have to understand that this was a family trip." "But I am family, Jessica. I'm David's mother and the children's grandmother." There was a cold laugh on the other end of the line. "Margaret, let me be clear about something. You're not really family. You're David's mother, yes, but this was about our nuclear family, our immediate family, your extended family at best." The words hit me like a physical blow. Extended family. After everything I had done for them, after all the love I had poured into those children, after the financial help and emotional support I had provided through difficult times, I was just extended family. "I see," I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm glad you understand. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a mountain of laundry to deal with, and the kids are being impossible after the time change." She hung up without saying goodbye, and I sat there in my kitchen, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Pure, unadulterated anger. You see, what Jessica didn't know, what David had apparently never told her, was that I wasn't just some retired grandmother living off Social Security and a modest pension. When Harold died, he left me very well provided for. His construction business had been more successful than most people realized, and his investments had grown substantially over the years. More importantly, in the months after his death, when I was grieving and lonely, I had made David and Jessica additional cardholders on several of my credit accounts. It had started innocently enough. David's business was going through a rough patch, and I wanted to help without making them feel like they were taking charity. I added them to my Platinum American Express, my Visa Black Card, and my premium department store accounts. "For emergencies," I had said. "Or if you need to buy something for the kids and don't want to worry about the expense." Over time, those emergency purchases had become regular purchases. Groceries, gas, clothing, electronics. They had gradually shifted more and more of their expenses onto my cards. I never complained because I could afford it, and it made me feel useful, like I was contributing to my family's well-being. But now I realized I had been contributing to the well-being of people who didn't even consider me family. I spent the next 2 days thinking and planning. I called my financial advisor, Robert Chen, who had been managing my affairs since Harold's death. "Mrs. Thompson," Robert said when I explained the situation, "I have to ask, are you sure about this? It's going to cause some significant disruption to their financial situation." "Robert, I'm 73 years old, and I've spent the last few years being treated like an inconvenience by people who have been living partially on my dime. I think it's time they learn to appreciate what they had." "All right then, I'll make the calls today. All cards will be canceled by tomorrow morning." The next morning, I was tending to my garden when my phone rang. Jessica's name appeared on the screen, and for the first time in years, I smiled before answering a call from her. "Margaret!" Her voice was high and panicked. "Thank God you answered. We have a huge problem." "Oh? What kind of problem, dear?" I asked, continuing to water my roses. "Our cards aren't working. None of them. David's at the grocery store right now, and our Visa was declined." Then he tried the American Express, and that was declined too. "Even my department store card isn't working." "How strange," I said, examining a particularly beautiful bloom. "Have you called the credit card companies to ask what's wrong?" "Yes, that's the thing. They're saying the accounts have been closed. All of them. But we didn't close them. Someone called and canceled everything." My goodness, that does sound concerning. Identity theft, perhaps? That's what we thought at first. But then David remembered that you were the primary account holder on most of these cards. "Did you cancel them?" I paused, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make her uncomfortable. "Well, Jessica, I did call the credit card companies yesterday." "You did? Why would you do that without talking to us first? We have bills due. Tommy's school fees are supposed to come out of the American Express next week." "I canceled them because I realized something important after our conversation the other day." "What? What did you realize?" "I realized that you were absolutely right. I'm not family. I'm just extended family at best, as you so eloquently put it. And extended family members shouldn't be responsible for a nuclear family's expenses, don't you think?" The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I could practically hear Jessica's mind racing, trying to figure out how to backtrack without actually apologizing. "Margaret, I think there might have been a misunderstanding." "Oh no, dear, no misunderstanding at all. You were very clear. I'm not family, so I shouldn't be paying for family expenses." "It makes perfect sense when you think about it. But Margaret, we rely on those cards. Our whole budget is set up around having access to those accounts." "Well, I'm sure David's business is doing well enough to support his nuclear family. After all, you wouldn't want to be dependent on someone who's not really family, would you? I could hear her breathing getting faster, and I suspected she was starting to panic. Look, maybe I spoke too hastily the other day. I was tired from the trip, and… Oh, how was the trip, by the way? It looked lovely from the photos. Those cenotes looked absolutely magical. I've always wanted to see them. It was fine. Listen, about what I said. No need to apologize, Jessica. You were just being honest. I appreciate honesty. In fact, your honesty helped me realize that I've been overstepping my boundaries as merely extended family. I've also realized that I should probably reconsider some other arrangements we have. Other arrangements? Well, you know how I've been paying for Emma's piano lessons and Tommy's soccer league fees? And how I've been covering the children's medical insurance premiums? Those are really nuclear family expenses, aren't they? Margaret, please, let's talk about this reasonably. I am being reasonable, dear. I'm simply respecting the boundaries you established. Extended family shouldn't be so involved in nuclear family finances. There was a long pause, and then I heard the sound of muffled crying. Margaret, I made a mistake. I was wrong to say you weren't family. Of course you're family. You're the children's grandmother, and they love you so much. Do they? Because it seemed like they had a wonderful family vacation without their grandmother there. Didn't seem to miss me at all in those lovely photos. That's not true. Emma asked about you every day. She wanted to bring you back a souvenir, but David said we shouldn't spend money on gifts when we were already spending so much on the trip. How thoughtful of him to be so budget conscious. I'm sure he'll appreciate having full control over his budget now. Margaret, please, can we meet for coffee and talk about this? I think we both said some things we didn't mean. I meant everything I said, Jessica. And I believe you meant what you said too. You were just being honest about how you really feel about me. That's not true. I was being petty and mean because I was stressed about the trip expenses and… She stopped abruptly, realizing what she had just admitted. Ah, so you were stressed about the expenses that I was actually paying for through my credit cards? It's not like that. Jessica, let me ask you something. How much money do you think you and David have spent on my cards over the past 2 years? I don't know. I'd have to look at the statements. I know, because I review all my statements carefully. Would you like to know the total? Another pause. How much? $47,362.18. The silence was so long I thought she might have hung up. Finally, she whispered, That much? That much. And that doesn't include the insurance premiums, the children's activities, or the times I've given David cash for various emergencies. All told, I would estimate that I've contributed close to $60,000 to your household budget over the past 2 years. Margaret, I had no idea it was that much. I'm sure you didn't. It's easy to lose track when someone else is paying the bills. But here's what I find interesting, Jessica. You were stressed about trip expenses, but not stressed enough to invite the person who was actually funding your lifestyle to join you. I heard what sounded like a sob on the other end of the line. I'm so sorry, Margaret. I was wrong. So wrong. Sorry doesn't restore trust, Jessica. Sorry doesn't undo the hurt of being excluded from my own family. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you looked me in the eye. Well, spoke to me on the phone and told me I wasn't family. But I was wrong. Were you? Or are you just sorry now that there are financial consequences? She was definitely crying now. Please, Margaret. The kids need their activities. Emma has a piano recital next month, and if we can't pay for lessons, then you and David will figure it out. That's what nuclear families do. They handle their own responsibilities. Margaret, please, I'm begging you. I'll do anything to make this right. Anything? Yes, anything. I sat down in my garden chair, looking out at the flowers Harold and I had planted together over the years. I want you to think very carefully about your answer, Jessica, because I'm going to ask you a question, and I want complete honesty. Okay? If I reinstate those credit cards, if I continue to pay for the children's activities and insurance, if I go back to helping support your family financially, what assurance do I have that I won't be excluded from the next family vacation? What guarantee do I have that you won't decide I'm not family again the next time it's convenient for you? The pause was so long, I began to think she had hung up. I don't know how to answer that. That's the most honest thing you've said in this entire conversation. Margaret, I swear I'll never treat you like that again. I swear on my children's lives. You're swearing on the lives of children whose grandmother you told wasn't family. Do you see the irony in that? Yes, she whispered. I see it. Jessica, I'm going to hang up now. I want you to think about something. I want you to imagine how you would feel if, 20 years from now, Emma or Tommy got married and their spouse decided you weren't really family. I want you to think about how it would feel to be excluded from their lives while still being expected to provide financial support. Really think about it. I will. And I want you to discuss with David exactly how much your family has been dependent on my financial support. I don't think he realizes the full extent of it either. He doesn't. We've never really talked about it. Well, now would be a good time to start that conversation. I hung up and sat in my garden for a long time, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. The satisfaction came from finally standing up for myself. The sadness came from the realization that my relationship with my son and daughter-in-law might never be the same. That afternoon, David called. Mom, we need to talk. Hello, David. How was work today? Mom, cut it out. Jessica told me what happened. She told me what she said to you about not being family. Yes, she was very clear about that. She was wrong, Mom. You know that, right? Of course you're family. Do I know that, David? Because I have to tell you, being excluded from a family vacation and then being told I'm not family doesn't make me feel very much like family. The vacation thing? Mom, that wasn't personal. We just thought, what did you think, David? That I'm too old? Too boring? That I would be a burden on your fun family time? No, that's not it at all. We just thought you might not enjoy all the activities, and it was expensive. Expensive? David, do you have any idea how much money I've contributed to your household over the past 2 years? There was a pause. Jessica mentioned a number, but it seemed impossibly high. What number did she mention? She said maybe $60,000, but that can't be right. It's right, David. It's actually a conservative estimate. Another long pause. Mom, I had no idea. I know you didn't. And that's part of the problem. You and Jessica have gotten so comfortable with my financial help that you've stopped thinking of it as help. You've started thinking of it as just available resources. That's not true. Isn't it? David, when was the last time you thanked me for paying Emma's piano lesson fees? Silence. When was the last time you acknowledged that I pay for Tommy's soccer league, his equipment, and his team photos? More silence. When was the last time either of you said, thank you for me covering the children's medical insurance premiums? Mom, we appreciate everything you do, but you appreciate it so much that you exclude me from family activities and tell me I'm not family when I dare to feel hurt about it? Jessica shouldn't have said that. She knows it was wrong. David, I need you to answer a question honestly. Do you consider me family? Of course I do. You're my mother. Then why wasn't I invited on the family vacation? Mom, it wasn't a deliberate slight. It just happened. A week-long vacation to another country just happened? David, you planned this trip. You booked flights, reserved hotel rooms, arranged activities. At what point during all that planning did it occur to either of you to include your mother and the children's grandmother? It didn't come up. I didn't come up. The children's grandmother didn't come up in planning a family vacation. When you put it like that, it sounds terrible. It is terrible, David. And what makes it worse is that you've been comfortable letting me financially support your family while simultaneously not considering me important enough to include in family activities. Mom, that's not fair. We include you in lots of things. Name the last family activity I was invited to that wasn't babysitting. Another pause. We had you over for dinner last month. David, I brought the groceries and cooked the dinner. You invited me to cook for you. That's not the same as including me in a family activity. Okay, that's a fair point. Here's what's going to happen, David. I've canceled all the credit cards. I've also canceled the automatic payments for the children's activities and insurance. Mom, you can't do that. Emma's recital is next month, and Tommy has a tournament coming up. And I'm sure you and Jessica will figure out how to handle those expenses. You're both adults with jobs. But Mom, we've built our budget around my money. Yes, I know. And that's a problem, isn't it? It's not like we were taking advantage of you, weren't you? David, tell me honestly, if you had to pay for Emma's piano lessons, Tommy's soccer, their medical insurance, and cover all those credit card expenses yourselves, would you have been able to afford a trip to Cancun? The silence stretched so long, I thought the call had dropped. David? No, he said quietly. No, we wouldn't have been able to afford it. So you used my money to fund your lifestyle, including an expensive vacation that I wasn't invited to. When you say it like that, I'm not putting a spin on it, David. I'm stating facts. You want to know what hurts the most? It's not even the money. It's that you and Jessica have been taking my financial support for granted while treating me like an afterthought in your lives. Mom, that's not true, isn't it? David, when was the last time you called me just to see how I was doing? Not to ask me to babysit? Not because you needed something, just to check on your mother? Another pause. I call you regularly. You call me when you need something. There's a difference. Mom, I'm sorry, we both are. Jessica is devastated about what she said. Is she devastated about what she said, or is she devastated about the consequences of what she said? Both, I think. David, I want you to understand something. I love you, and I love Emma and Tommy with all my heart, but I will not continue to be treated like a convenient ATM who occasionally provides babysitting services. That's not how we see you. That's exactly how you see me. And the proof is in your actions. You're comfortable taking my money, but not comfortable including me in your lives. Mom, what can we do to fix this? I don't know if it can be fixed, David. Trust, once broken, is very difficult to repair. But you're willing to try, right? I looked out at my garden, at the flowers Harold and I had planted, at the life we had built together. After he died, I thought my family would be my connection to the future, my legacy. Instead, I had become a source of funding for people who didn't value my presence. I need time to think, David. I need time to decide what kind of relationship I want with you and Jessica going forward. What does that mean? It means that I'm 73 years old, and I'm tired of begging for scraps of affection from my own family. I'm tired of being an afterthought. I'm tired of being taken for granted. Mom, please don't give up on us. I'm not giving up on you, David. I'm just done enabling you. After I hung up, I called Eleanor. So, how did it go? She asked. I think I may have just blown up my relationship with my son and daughter-in-law. Good. It was a relationship built on them using you anyway. Ellie, what if I never see the grandchildren again? Maggie, do you really think David is going to keep the children away from you permanently? Those kids love you. And more importantly, David and Jessica need you. They just didn't realize how much until today. Maybe I was too harsh. Maggie, listen to me. You spent Harold's money he worked his whole life to provide for you, supporting people who didn't think you were important enough to include in a family vacation. If anything, you weren't harsh enough. But what if? No what ifs. You did the right thing, and now they know you're not someone they can take for granted. That evening, I was reading in my living room when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Emma and Tommy standing on my porch with David behind them. Emma was holding a drawing, and Tommy was carrying a small bag. I opened the door, and Emma immediately threw her arms around my waist. Grandma Maggie, I missed you so much. I made you a picture of us swimming with dolphins. Tommy hugged my legs. Grandma, I brought you a shell from the beach. Daddy said you would like it. I knelt down to their level, my heart melting despite everything that had happened. I missed you too, my darlings. Tell me all about your trip. David stood awkwardly in the doorway while the children chattered about their adventures. After a few minutes, he cleared his throat. Kids, why don't you go wash your hands? I think Grandma might have some cookies in the kitchen. As the children ran off, David stepped inside and closed the door behind him. Mom, we need to talk. I assume that's why you're here. The kids don't know about the situation. I told them we came to bring you your souvenirs and see your reaction to Emma's picture. That was thoughtful. Mom, Jessica is at home crying. She hasn't stopped since you hung up on her this morning. I'm sorry she's upset. Are you? Because you don't sound sorry. I looked at my son, this man I had raised, loved, supported through college, through starting his business, through the early years of his marriage and parenthood. This man who had let his wife exclude me from a family vacation funded by my money. David, I am sorry that Jessica is upset, but I am not sorry that there are finally consequences for treating me poorly. Mom, she made a mistake. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake, David. A mistake is saying something you don't mean in the heat of the moment. This was a calculated decision to exclude me from a family event, followed by a cruel comment designed to put me in my place when I dared to express hurt feelings. She was stressed. Stop making excuses for her, David. You're doing exactly what I've been doing for years, making excuses for behavior that's inexcusable. So what happens now? You cut us out of your life? I don't know what happens now. That depends on whether you and Jessica are capable of treating me like family instead of like a convenient resource. Of course we can do that. Can you? Because David, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about Jessica's comment. This is about a pattern of behavior that's been building for years. What do you mean? I sat down on my couch and gestured for him to sit across from me. David, do you remember when Tommy broke his arm last year? Of course. Do you remember who took him to the emergency room while you and Jessica were both at work? You did. And do you remember who stayed with him during his surgery while Jessica went home to shower and change? You did. And do you remember who paid the medical bills that your insurance didn't cover? You did, but Mom. And do you remember Jessica posting on Facebook about what a strong, brave boy Tommy was and how proud she was of how well he handled everything? Yeah, she did post something like that. Do you remember her mentioning me in that post? David was quiet for a moment. No, I don't think she did. She didn't. According to her version of events, Tommy was a brave boy who handled everything well with the support of his loving parents. The grandmother, who sat with him for 6 hours and paid his medical bills, didn't merit a mention. Mom, that was just an oversight, was it? Or was it another example of me being invisible unless you need something from me? I think you're being a little unfair. Am I? David, let me ask you something else. Do you remember Emma's school play last spring? Of course. She was a butterfly. Do you remember who made her costume because Jessica said she was too busy with work? You did. And do you remember who drove her to extra rehearsals when you and Jessica couldn't? You did. And do you remember the program from that play? What about it? It listed all the parent volunteers who helped with costumes, sets, and transportation. Do you remember seeing my name listed anywhere? Another pause. I don't remember looking at the volunteer list. I wasn't on it. Jessica submitted the list of volunteers to the school, and she didn't include me. According to the official record, she made Emma's costume and provided transportation. Mom, maybe she just forgot. David, stop. Please stop making excuses. I need you to see the pattern here. I do the work, I provide the money, I give the time and effort, but I don't get credit. I'm not included in the memories or the recognition. I'm just there when you need me. David was quiet for a long time, and I could see him thinking through what I had said. I never realized, he said finally. I know you didn't, and I don't blame you for not seeing it because it's been subtle. But Jessica has been systematically minimizing my role in this family while maximizing my financial contributions. That sounds so calculating when you put it that way. Maybe because it is calculating. Mom, I don't want to believe that Jessica has been deliberately manipulating the situation. David, I'm not asking you to choose between your wife and your mother. I'm asking you to see the situation clearly and decide what kind of relationship you want us to have going forward. Just then, Emma came running back into the room with a cookie in each hand. Grandma, Daddy, look! I found the chocolate chip ones! Tommy was right behind her, chocolate already smeared on his face. Grandma, can we watch a movie? I looked at these beautiful children, my grandchildren, and felt my resolve wavering. But then I thought about Harold, about the life we had built together, about the money he had worked so hard to provide for my security. I thought about the dignity I had lost somewhere along the way, and I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were. Of course, sweethearts, you pick the movie and I'll make some popcorn. As the children settled in front of the television, David helped me in the kitchen. Mom, the kids love you so much. I love them too, David, more than anything. Then please don't let this situation affect your relationship with them. I won't punish the children for their parents' mistakes, David, but I also won't continue to be taken advantage of. What would it take for you to forgive us? I thought about that question while I popped corn in my old-fashioned popper, the one Harold had given me for our 25th wedding anniversary. I don't know if it's about forgiveness, David. It's about respect. It's about being valued for more than what I can provide financially. We do value you. Do you? Then prove it. How? Start by having an honest conversation with Jessica about how your family has been treating me. Really honest. Don't let her make excuses or blame stress or anything else. Make her acknowledge what she's done. And then we'll see. David, I can't just flip a switch and trust you both again. You've shown me that I can't rely on you to include me or value me unless I'm providing something you need. That's going to take time to change. We finished making popcorn in silence and then joined the children for the movie. Emma curled up next to me on one side, and Tommy snuggled in on the other side. David sat in Harold's old chair, the chair he had claimed as his favorite spot whenever he visited. Halfway through the movie, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Jessica. "Margaret, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to tell you something. I've been thinking about what I said, and I realize it wasn't just mean, it was wrong in every possible way. You've been more family to my children than some of their actual relatives. You've been there for every important moment, every crisis, every celebration. I took that for granted, and I took you for granted. I don't know how to fix this, but I want you to know that I see now how badly I've treated you. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough, but it's a start." I showed the message to David, who read it and nodded. "She means it, Mom. She's been beating herself up all day." "David, meaning it isn't enough. She needs to change her behavior." "I know, and she will." "Will she? Or will she be extra nice for a few weeks until things blow over and then gradually slip back into old patterns?" "I won't let that happen." "You haven't noticed it happening for the past few years. What makes you think you'll notice it going forward?" "Because now I know what to look for." After the movie ended, David packed up the children and prepared to leave. Emma hugged me extra tight. "Grandma, will you come to my piano recital next month?" "Of course, sweetheart. I wouldn't miss it. Mommy said we might not be able to do piano anymore because of money problems." I glanced at David, who looked embarrassed. "Well, we'll see what happens, Emma. Sometimes grown-ups worry about money more than they need to." After they left, I called Eleanor again. "How did it go with the kids?" "The kids were wonderful. David, still making excuses for his wife?" "Some, but I think he's starting to understand the situation better." "And Jessica?" I read Eleanor the text message I had received. "Well, that's something, I suppose. What are you going to do?" "I honestly don't know, Ellie. Part of me wants to forgive them and go back to the way things were, because I miss being part of their daily lives. But another part of me knows that if I do that, nothing will really change." You know what Harold would say? Harold had died before the situation with David and Jessica had gotten really bad, but he had never been fond of Jessica. He thought she was selfish and manipulative, though he had kept his opinions mostly to himself. He'd say I should stand my ground. He'd say you should demand the respect you deserve, and he'd be right. That night, I lay in bed thinking about the early days of David and Jessica's relationship. She had been charming and sweet, and I had been so happy that David had found someone who seemed to love him as much as I did. But looking back now, I could see that her sweetness had always been conditional. She was sweet when she wanted something, sweet when she needed my help, sweet when it benefited her to be on my good side. The change had been gradual, so gradual that I hadn't noticed it happening. After Emma was born, Jessica had started making little comments about how different our parenting styles were. When Tommy came along, those comments became more frequent and more pointed. She would undermine my authority with the children in small ways, telling them they didn't have to follow my rules when they were at my house, or contradicting my advice about everything from bedtime routines to dietary choices. I had attributed it to new mother stress, then to the challenges of raising 2 young children. I had made excuses for her behavior the same way David was making excuses for it now. But the truth was that Jessica had been systematically pushing me to the margins of the family while keeping me close enough to provide financial support and free childcare. The next morning, I decided to do something I had been putting off for months. I called my lawyer, Patricia Williams, who had helped me settle Harold's estate. "Margaret, it's good to hear from you. How are you doing?" "I'm well, Patricia, but I need to discuss some changes to my will." "Of course. What kind of changes are you considering?" I explained the situation with David and Jessica, including the financial support I had been providing and the way I had been treated in return. "Margaret, I have to say I'm not entirely surprised. When you first added them to your credit accounts, I wondered if it might create some complications down the road. You never said anything. It wasn't my place to interfere with your family relationships, but I've seen situations like this before. Financial support can sometimes create unhealthy dependencies and resentments. Well, you were right to be concerned. Patricia, I want to make some changes to ensure that my grandchildren are provided for, but I want to structure things differently. What did you have in mind? I want to set up education trusts for Emma and Tommy, funds that can only be used for school expenses, college tuition, things like that. I want to make sure David and Jessica can't access those funds for other purposes. That's certainly doable. What about the rest of your estate? I'm considering leaving a smaller portion to David than I originally planned. The bulk of it would go to the children's trusts, and I'd like to leave significant amounts to several charities that are important to me. How much smaller are we talking about? Instead of David inheriting 70% of my estate, I'm thinking more like 20%. That's a significant change, Margaret. Are you sure you want to make such a drastic adjustment based on this current situation? These family conflicts sometimes resolve themselves. Patricia, this isn't just about the current situation. This is about years of being taken for granted and treated like an afterthought. I want my legacy to go to people and organizations that will value it. All right, I'll draft some preliminary documents for your review. But Margaret, I'd suggest you sit on this for a few weeks before making any final decisions. Estate planning during emotional times can sometimes lead to regrets later. I understand, but I want to have the documents ready. If things improve between us, I can always change them back. After hanging up with Patricia, I spent some time researching the charities I wanted to include in my revised will. There was the local literacy program, where I had volunteered for years, the animal shelter where Harold and I had adopted our beloved dog, Rusty, and the scholarship fund at the community college, where I had taught part-time after Harold's business took off. These organizations had always appreciated my contributions, both financial and personal. When I donated my time, they acknowledged it. When I provided funding, they thanked me. They made me feel valued in a way that my own family had failed to do. That afternoon, Emma called me. David must have given her my number and taught her how to use it, because she had never called me independently before. Grandma Maggie, it's Emma. Hello, sweetheart. What a nice surprise to hear from you. Grandma, Mommy has been crying a lot, and Daddy looks sad. Did something bad happen? My heart broke a little. These children were caught in the middle of an adult situation they couldn't understand. Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements, Emma, but it has nothing to do with you and Tommy, and I want you to know that I love you both very, very much. Are you mad at Mommy and Daddy? I'm not mad, sweetheart. I'm just sad about some things that happened, but that doesn't change how much I love you. Mommy said she said something mean to you. Yes, she did. But sometimes when people are upset or stressed, they say things they don't really mean. Like when I told Tommy I hated him when he broke my crayon. Something like that, yes. I didn't really hate Tommy. I was just mad about my crayon. I know, sweetie. And I think your mommy didn't really mean what she said either. Are you going to forgive her, like I forgave Tommy? Out of the mouths of babes. This 7-year-old had just cut right to the heart of the matter with the kind of clarity that adults often lack. I'm thinking about it, Emma. Forgiveness is important, but it's also important for people to learn from their mistakes. What does that mean? It means that when someone hurts us, we can forgive them, but we also need to make sure they understand why what they did was wrong so they don't do it again. Oh, like when you forgave me for breaking your flower pot, but you made me help you plant new flowers so I would remember to be more careful. Exactly like that. Grandma, I miss you. Can you come have dinner with us tomorrow? I paused, thinking about how to respond. I didn't want to punish the children, but I also wasn't ready to sit around a dinner table pretending everything was normal. How about this, Emma? What if you and Tommy come have dinner with me tomorrow instead? I'll make your favorite spaghetti and meatballs. Can Mommy and Daddy come too? Let me talk to your daddy about that, okay? Okay. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, sweetheart. After Emma hung up, I immediately called David. Mom, did Emma just call you? Yes, she did. David, that little girl is worried about the adults in her life. She can see that everyone is upset, and she doesn't understand why. I know. Jessica and I have been trying to keep our stress away from the kids, but they're perceptive. I invited Emma and Tommy for dinner tomorrow night. I'd like you and Jessica to bring them over, but I want to make something clear. This is not me sweeping everything under the rug. This is me making sure my grandchildren know they're loved and that this adult conflict isn't their fault. I understand. What time? 6 o'clock. And David? I want you and Jessica to stay for dinner too. We need to have a serious conversation about how we move forward. Okay, should I bring anything? Just yourselves and an honest willingness to address the problems in our relationship. The next day, I spent hours preparing Emma's favorite meal. I made fresh pasta, homemade meatballs, garlic bread, and a salad with the vegetables from my garden. I also baked chocolate chip cookies, which were Tommy's favorite. As I cooked, I thought about the conversation I needed to have with David and Jessica. I had been thinking about Eleanor's advice, Patricia's warnings, and Emma's innocent question about forgiveness. I had also been thinking about Harold, and what kind of example I wanted to set for my grandchildren. Harold had always been a fair man, but he had also been firm about his principles. He wouldn't have tolerated being treated the way I had been treated, but he also wouldn't have let pride prevent him from finding a solution that was best for everyone involved. At exactly 6 o'clock, I heard car doors slamming in my driveway. Through the window, I watched David help the children out of their car seats, while Jessica stood by awkwardly, clutching a small bouquet of flowers from the grocery store. When I opened the door, Emma and Tommy rushed to hug me, chattering excitedly about their day at school. David kissed my cheek as he always did, and Jessica stepped forward hesitantly. "Margaret, these are for you. I know they're not much, but I wanted to bring something." I accepted the flowers graciously. "Thank you, Jessica. They're lovely." The children ran off to wash their hands while the 3 adults stood in my entryway, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. "Let's go to the kitchen," I said. "Dinner is almost ready." As we prepared to sit down, I noticed Jessica looking around the dining room with what seemed like new eyes. This was the room where I had hosted countless family dinners, birthday parties, and holiday celebrations. The walls were covered with photos of family moments, pictures of David as a child, wedding photos of David and Jessica, dozens of pictures of Emma and Tommy at various ages. "I never really noticed how many pictures you have of the kids," Jessica said quietly. "I have pictures of all the people I love," I replied. During dinner, I focused on the children, asking about school, their friends, and their upcoming activities. Emma told me about a book report she was working on, and Tommy showed me a loose tooth that was making eating difficult. "Will the tooth fairy come even if I'm not at home when it falls out?" Tommy asked. "The tooth fairy always finds children who lose teeth no matter where they are," I assured him. "How does she know where to look?" Emma asked. "Magic," I said, winking at her. "The tooth fairy has very good magic for finding lost teeth." David and Jessica were unusually quiet during dinner, and I could see Jessica watching me interact with the children. She seemed to be seeing something she hadn't noticed before, or hadn't allowed herself to notice. After we finished eating, I sent the children to the living room to watch television while the adults cleaned up the kitchen. "Mom, dinner was delicious," David said as he loaded the dishwasher. "Just like when I was a kid. I'm glad you enjoyed it." Jessica was wiping down the counters, moving slowly as if she didn't want the task to end. Finally, she spoke. "Margaret, I owe you a much bigger apology than I gave you on the phone." I continued putting leftovers in containers. "I'm listening. I've been thinking about what you said, about patterns of behavior, and I realize you're right. I have been taking credit for things you've done and excluding you from recognition you deserved." "Such as?" "Tommy's broken arm, Emma's costume, the volunteer lists at school, the Facebook posts about family activities that don't mention you even when you were part of them." She paused. "I think I was jealous." That caught my attention. "Jealous of what?" "Of how much the kids love you. Of how easy it is for you to connect with them. Of how they light up when they see you." Jessica's voice was getting shaky. "I felt like I was competing with you for their affection, and instead of trying to be a better mother, I tried to diminish your role in their lives." David had stopped loading the dishwasher and was staring at his wife. I suspected this was the first time he was hearing this level of honesty from her. "Jessica, you're their mother. There was never any competition." "I know that now, but I felt threatened, and I handled it terribly. Instead of appreciating what a gift it was for my children to have such a loving grandmother, I resented it." "And the money?" I asked. "How do you explain taking advantage of my financial support while treating me like I wasn't important?" Jessica was crying now. "I don't know how to explain it except to say that I felt entitled to it. You offered help, and I started thinking of it as just available. I stopped being grateful and started expecting it. That's a problem, Jessica. I know it's a huge problem, and I don't know how to fix it." I finished putting away the leftovers and turned to face her. "Do you want to fix it?" "Yes, more than anything." "Then here's what needs to happen. First, you and David need to take responsibility for your own finances. I will not be reinstating those credit cards." David started to protest, but I held up my hand. "Let me finish. Second, if you want me to continue helping with the children's activities and expenses, then you need to acknowledge that help publicly and appropriately. No more taking credit for things I do. No more leaving me off volunteer lists when I've done the work." "Agreed," Jessica said immediately. "Third, I want to be included in family activities and family decisions that affect the children. I don't need to be consulted about everything, but I shouldn't find out about major events like vacations through social media posts. Of course, David said. That should have been happening all along. And finally, I want both of you to think carefully about how you treat me going forward. I will not tolerate being taken for granted again. If you can't treat me with respect and appreciation, then I'd rather have a more distant relationship. Margaret, Jessica said, I swear to you that I will never treat you that way again. Jessica, I appreciate your apology, and I believe you mean it. But I need to see changes in your behavior over time. Words are easy. Actions are what matter. What can I do to start making this right? I thought about Emma's piano recital, about the school events where I had been invisible, about all the times my contributions had gone unacknowledged. Emma's piano recital is next month. I want you to make sure the teacher knows that I've been paying for her lessons. I want to be listed in the program as one of Emma's supporters, and I want to sit with the family, not in the back by myself. Done. And I want you to post on Facebook about how grateful you are for my help with the children. I want you to acknowledge publicly what I do for this family. Jessica nodded eagerly. I can do that tonight. Don't do it tonight. Do it when you mean it, not when you're trying to get back in my good graces. Okay, I understand. David had been listening to this exchange with a thoughtful expression. Mom, what about the financial stuff? I know we've been depending on your help more than we should have. David, I'm not going to leave you high and dry. I'll continue paying for Emma's piano lessons and Tommy's soccer through the end of their current sessions. After that, those expenses are your responsibility. I'll also continue covering their medical insurance for the rest of this year, but starting in January, you'll need to make other arrangements. What about emergencies? What if something happens and we really need help? If there's a genuine emergency, a medical crisis, a job loss, something truly unexpected, then we can discuss it. But David, a vacation to Cancun is not an emergency. New clothes, because the kids outgrew their old ones, is not an emergency. Those are normal family expenses that you should be budgeting for. You're right. We've gotten too comfortable relying on you. Yes, you have. And that's not healthy for any of us. We finished cleaning the kitchen in silence and then joined the children in the living room. Emma was curled up on the couch with one of my photo albums, and Tommy was building something with blocks I kept in a basket for their visits. Grandma, look at this picture, Emma said, holding up the album. It's you and Grandpa Harold at my first birthday party. I sat down next to her and looked at the photo. Harold was holding a 1-year-old Emma while I stood beside them, both of us beaming with joy. I remembered that day, how Emma had gotten cake all over her face, how she had been more interested in the wrapping paper than the presents, how Harold had spent an hour on the floor playing with her. Grandpa Harold loved you very much, I told Emma. I wish I could remember him better. Would you like me to tell you some stories about him? Yes. For the next hour, I told the children stories about their grandfather, how he had built the treehouse in the backyard specifically for future grandchildren, how he had started a college fund for them before they were even born, how he had insisted on keeping ice cream in the freezer at all times because you never know when grandkids might visit. David and Jessica listened to these stories too, and I could see Jessica wiping away tears as I talked about Harold's excitement about becoming a grandfather. He sounds like he was a wonderful man, Jessica said when I finished. He was, and he would have loved seeing how much Emma and Tommy have grown. I'm sorry I didn't get to know him better, Jessica continued. I was so focused on planning the wedding and starting our life together that I didn't spend much time with him before he got sick. He understood. He was sick for such a short time, and you had a lot going on. Still, I regret not making more effort. As the evening wound down, the children became sleepy and clingy. Tommy curled up in my lap, while Emma leaned against my arm, both of them fighting to stay awake. We should probably head home, David said. It's past their bedtime. Can we stay a little longer? Emma asked. I'm not that tired. You're falling asleep sitting up, sweetheart, Jessica said gently. We'll come visit Grandma again soon. Promise? I promise. As they gathered their things to leave, Jessica approached me with tears in her eyes. Margaret, thank you for giving me another chance. I know I don't deserve it. Jessica, everyone deserves a chance to do better. But this is your last chance with me. I won't tolerate being treated poorly again. I understand, and I won't let you down. After they left, I sat in my living room surrounded by the photo albums Emma had been looking through. Pictures of birthday parties, Christmas mornings, family dinners, school events, decades of memories with the people I loved most. I thought about Harold and how proud he had been of our family. I thought about the money he had worked so hard to provide for our security and happiness. I thought about the legacy he had wanted to leave and the values he had tried to instill in David. Harold would have wanted me to fight for my place in this family, but he also would have wanted me to be fair and forgiving when people showed genuine remorse and a willingness to change. I decided to give David and Jessica the chance they were asking for, but with clear boundaries and expectations. I would continue to be a loving grandmother and a supportive family member, but I would not continue to be a doormat. The next morning, I called Patricia and told her to hold off on the drastic changes to my will. "I'm glad to hear that, Margaret. Are things improving with your family?" "We're trying to work things out. But Patricia, I still want you to set up those education trusts for the grandchildren. I want to make sure their futures are secure regardless of what happens between me and their parents." "That's a wise decision. And I want to maintain some of the charitable bequests we discussed. My family is important to me, but so is giving back to organizations that have made a difference in my life." "Understood. I'll draft documents that reflect those priorities." 2 weeks later, Jessica posted a long message on Facebook that took my breath away. It was a photo of me with Emma and Tommy at a recent soccer game, and the caption read, "I don't often post about personal family matters, but I need to share something important. This is my mother-in-law, Margaret, and she is one of the most generous, loving, and selfless people I have ever known. For years, she has been the backbone of our family in ways that I haven't always acknowledged or appreciated." Margaret pays for Emma's piano lessons because she believes every child should have the opportunity to learn music. She covers Tommy's soccer league fees because she knows how much joy he gets from playing with his friends. She has been there for every emergency, every celebration, every moment when we needed support. More than that, she has been an incredible grandmother to my children. She reads to them, plays with them, teaches them about gardening and cooking and life. She tells them stories about their grandfather Harold and makes sure they understand their family history. She loves them unconditionally and shows them every day what it means to be cherished. I have not always treated Margaret with the respect and appreciation she deserves. I have taken her generosity for granted and failed to acknowledge the countless ways she contributes to our family's happiness and well-being. That changes now. Margaret, if you're reading this, I want you to know how grateful I am for everything you do. You are not just David's mother or the children's grandmother. You are family in every sense of the word, and I am honored to be part of your life. Thank you for your patience, your forgiveness, and your love. We are better people because you are in our lives. The post received dozens of comments from friends and family members who shared their own stories about my kindness and generosity. People I hadn't spoken to in years reached out to tell me how much they appreciated the message and how lucky my family was to have me. But the comment that meant the most came from David. "Mom, this post doesn't even begin to capture how amazing you are, but it's a start. I love you." 3 weeks later, Emma had her piano recital. I arrived at the school auditorium to find David, and Jessica had saved me a seat in the front row with the family. The program listed me as Emma Thompson's grandmother and piano lesson sponsor, and when Emma took her bow after her performance, she smiled and waved directly at me. After the recital, as we were leaving the auditorium, several other parents approached me. "You must be so proud of Emma," one mother said. "Jessica tells me you've been supporting her piano education." "I am very proud," I replied. "She's worked very hard." "It's wonderful that she has such a supportive grandmother," another parent added. "Not every child is so lucky." I looked over at Jessica, who was standing nearby with a genuine smile on her face. She had made sure to introduce me to other parents and had given me credit for my role in Emma's musical education. It was a small thing, but it represented the kind of change I had been hoping to see. Over the following months, things slowly improved between us. Jessica made an effort to include me in planning family activities. David called me regularly just to check in, not because he needed something. The children continued to be the bright spots in my life, and I could see that they were happier when the adults around them were getting along. I did follow through on some of my financial boundaries. David and Jessica had to take over the credit card expenses, which meant adjusting their lifestyle and budget. They couldn't afford to eat out as often or buy as many non-essential items, but they managed. David's business was doing well enough to support their basic needs, and they learned to live within their means. I continued paying for the children's activities through the end of the year, as I had promised, and then David and Jessica took over those expenses as well. It meant Emma had to cut back from weekly piano lessons to bi-weekly lessons, and Tommy's soccer equipment wasn't quite as fancy as it had been, but both children adapted without complaint. The most significant change was in how I was treated and acknowledged. Jessica began including me in her social media posts about family activities. When I helped with school events, my contributions were recognized. When the children achieved something special, Jessica made sure to mention my role in supporting them. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments when I felt taken for granted or excluded. But when those moments occurred, I spoke up immediately instead of letting resentment build over time. And to their credit, David and Jessica listened and made adjustments. 6 months after the Cancun incident, David approached me with an idea. Mom, Jessica and I have been talking, and we want to plan a family vacation for next summer, somewhere we can all go together. That sounds lovely, David. We were thinking maybe a lake house rental, somewhere with activities for the kids, but also peaceful enough for you to relax. What do you think? I think that sounds perfect. And David, thank you for including me in the planning from the beginning. Mom, I'm sorry it took me so long to realize how badly we were treating you. You deserved better from us. The important thing is that we're doing better now. As I write this, it's been a year since the credit card incident. My relationship with David and Jessica isn't the same as it was before. It's better. It's built on honesty and mutual respect instead of enabling and resentment. I've learned that being a loving grandmother and mother doesn't mean accepting poor treatment from my family. I've learned that financial generosity without emotional boundaries can be harmful to everyone involved. And I've learned that sometimes the people we love most need to experience consequences in order to appreciate what they have. Emma is now 8 and continues to excel at piano, though she only takes lessons twice a month. Tommy is 6 and still loves soccer, though his gear is purchased at the local sporting goods store instead of the premium shops. Both children are thriving, and they tell me regularly how much they love me. David's business continues to grow, and he and Jessica have learned to manage their finances responsibly. They've even started a small savings account for family vacations that will include Grandma Margaret from the planning stages through the final group photo. As for me, I've found a balance between being generous and being respected. I still help my family when they truly need it, but I no longer enable them to take me for granted. I've maintained my financial independence and my dignity while preserving the relationships that matter most to me. Harold would be proud, I think. He always said that love without respect isn't really love at all. It's just sentiment. And he would be delighted to see how much Emma and Tommy have grown, how much they've learned, and how deeply they're loved by their grandmother, who finally learned to love herself enough to demand better treatment. The lake house vacation is planned for next month. Emma is bringing her keyboard so she can practice, and Tommy is bringing his soccer ball. Jessica has asked me to help plan the meals, and David has requested that I bring some of Harold's old fishing equipment to teach Tommy how to fish. I'll be packing photos of Harold to share with the children, stories about their grandfather that they haven't heard yet, and a heart full of love for a family that learned, sometimes painfully, how to treat each other with the respect and appreciation that love requires. It took a credit card cancellation and some difficult conversations, but we got there. And that, I think, is what families do. They make mistakes, they hurt each other, they learn, and they do better. The important thing is that everyone involved has to be willing to acknowledge their mistakes and work towards something better. I am 74 now, and I have learned that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, and it's never too late to forgive when someone genuinely wants to do better. Both lessons have served me well. Everything started with a Facebook post about a family vacation I wasn't invited to. It ended with a family that finally understands what it means to be a family, through good times and bad, through mistakes and forgiveness, and through the kind of love that demands the very best from all of us.